Jennifer Harris disappeared from Bonham, Texas on Mother's Day 2002. The secrets in the Jennifer Harris case have been hidden for 20 years.
When someone disappears, you have to look at who would benefit from their disappearance.
What happened to Jennifer Harris? And who is responsible for her death? Coming May 10th, Final Days on Earth, Season 2, The Life and Death of Jennifer Harris. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 267 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
I'm doing very well. Having a good week. Ready to put out some very good episodes. Speaking of that, we have an episode out right now on True Crime All the Time where we're talking about a woman named Janie Lou Gibbs.
Yeah.
This was a woman who poisoned 5 members of her family.
And didn't care.
No, she didn't care, but there are some questions in the case. You know, her defense put on an insanity type defense.
Yeah.
The prosecution said she killed for life insurance money. So, you know, it's an interesting case. There are a number of fascinating aspects to it. So make sure you check that out. Gibbs, let's go ahead and give our Patreon shout outs. We had Emily Whitecotton.
Hey, Emily.
Mary Gibbs jumped out at our highest level.
What's going on, Mary?
Nikia.
Hey, Nikia.
Melissa Myers.
Well, thank you, Melissa.
Melissa Cox.
Hey, thanks again, Melissa.
Erica Grenier jumped out at our highest level.
Well, thank you, Erica.
Chinya Parker.
Well, thank you, Parker.
Megan Stamp.
Hey, Megan.
Leslie Fromer.
Awesome, Leslie.
Amy Urban jumped out at our highest level.
What's up, Amy?
Creepy Hands Creation jumped out at our highest level.
What's going on, Creation?
Clifford Poole.
Hey, thank you, Poole.
Angela Refuse.
Hey, Refuse.
Jenny Barber.
Hey, what's up, Barber?
Marianne Comstock.
Hey, Marianne.
And Kinsey Richards.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks, Kinsey.
Yeah, thanks to everyone. And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Megan St. Louis.
Well, thank you, Megan.
So thanks to everyone. We also had some great PayPal donations from Rental Home.
Well, appreciate that, Rental.
Judy Larson.
Hey, Judy.
And Bill Ratcliffe.
What's up, Bill?
So thanks to everyone. All right, buddy. Are you ready to get into this episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We're talking about the disappearance of Ayla Reynolds. In mid-December 2011, 20-month-old Ayla disappeared from the city of Waterville, Maine, where she was staying with her father. Ayla was last seen by her family when she was put to bed. The next morning, the toddler was gone. The search for Ayla became the largest criminal investigation in Maine history. And really, Gibbs, it wasn't long after she disappeared that the focus turned to her father.
And why wouldn't it? He was the last person said to have seen Ayla.
But there was nothing initially directly linking him to her disappearance. And as more time passed, any momentum the investigation had seemed to lose traction. Ayla's mother initiated legal proceedings against the missing girl's father, claiming that he caused Ayla's death. But even this failed to elicit any further information from the father, leading to his child's whereabouts. Ayla remains missing to this day. Despite the authorities' formal announcement that she has died, her mother hopes that one day she can find out what happened to her daughter and that the person or persons responsible will be brought to justice.
And it says a lot for this to be the largest criminal investigation in Maine.
Yeah, I think anytime you do a case and it turns out that it was the biggest investigation in that state, well, obviously it's a big case. Now, Maine's not a huge state, but I think you also have to factor in that this was a 20-month-old child. Okay. everybody is going to come out, right? The police are going to put all their efforts into finding this toddler because, in some of the cases that we do give, we're talking about someone, let's say 16, 17, or even 18 or older,
right,
where police are kind of on the fence. Did they, run away? Did they leave voluntarily, or did something bad happen to them? Well, when you're dealing with a 20-month-old child, that factor is taken out of the equation. A 20-month-old child doesn't say, hey, I'm going to run away.
Right.
That's just not how it works. So you have to, I think, start with the supposition that something bad happened. Ayla Bell Reynolds was born on April 4th, 2010, to her parents, Trista Reynolds and Justin DiPietro. When Trista became pregnant, it was a surprise for the couple. It was reported that Justin wanted to put the baby up for adoption after it was born, but Trista refused. By the time of Ayla's birth, her parents' relationship had broken down, and Trista lived in Portland, Maine. Trista was Ayla's primary caregiver, but knew that it was important for her daughter to have time with Justin. Trista noticed that when Ayla returned from spending time with her father, she sometimes had bumps and bruises, which Justin explained away by saying Ayla had accidentally injured herself, as kids tend to do. And that is a true statement. Anyone that's had a small child crawling around, learning to walk, there are falls, there are, falling into tables, you get bumps and bruises.
Yeah, unless you're going to put some type of foam suit on them, right?
Yeah.
It's bound to happen.
I mean, you can go through the whole rigmarole of, putting foam around the edges of the table. Yeah. You can do all of that. It's not going to stop kids from falling down and getting bumps and bruises. Now, I'm not saying that's what happened in this case. No. I'm just saying that it does happen. In April 2011, Trista gave birth to a baby boy. So Trista was doing her best, right, as a single mom, but she had some difficulties. She struggled with addiction. So wanting to do the best thing for herself and her children, she voluntarily entered rehab for a 10-day stay in October 2011. Trista arranged for Ayla to go stay with Trista's sister, but she later told True Crime Daily that Justin and his mother, Phoebe, had manipulated a Department of Health and Human Services caseworker into placing Ayla with them instead while Trista was receiving treatment. So in October 2011, the Maine Department of Human Services decided to place Ayla with her father at his home on Violet Avenue as a temporary custody measure. Justin's mother, Phoebe, his sister, Alicia, and Alicia's baby girl, who would have been Ayla's cousin, also lived in the home. In early December, Ayla broke her left arm, resulting in the need for a soft cast. Justin told medical staff that she sustained the injury after he tripped on some steps in the rain and fell over while carrying his daughter and groceries at the same time.
That could happen.
It could happen. I think, it's one of the things that we're going to be asking in this case. What could happen versus what really did happen.
Right.
And those are often very big questions.
They are. In cases like this, sometimes what might have been something innocent, all of a sudden doesn't look so innocent anymore.
Or later turns out to actually be something sinister.
Exactly.
Trista has said that after she returned home from rehab, she lived with her father, but she constantly tried to make contact with Justin to talk to their daughter. But she said that he put up a roadblock at every turn, and Trista didn't see or speak to Ayla after leaving rehab. By December 15th, 2011, Trista was frustrated, and she filed for sole custody of Ayla. On the night of December 16th, 2011, Justin put Ayla to bed around 8 p.m. According to the Bangor Daily News, Justin later told police his daughter was wearing green polka dot onesie pajamas with Daddy's Princess written across the front. When Justin woke up the next morning, his daughter was gone. He reported her missing at 8:50 a.m., telling the 911 dispatcher there's no way she could have crawled out of her crib and out of the house.
So this is a parent's worst nightmare. You put your child to bed, go to sleep, wake up the next morning, your child's gone. Where do you even start?
Well, I think you start by calling the police, which is what Justin did. The Maine State Police, the Maine Warden Service, and Waterville Police all got to work trying to locate Ayla. She disappeared during the winter. This was December, the middle of December. And if she had somehow managed to get outside, she wouldn't have survived for long in the bitter temperatures. Justin told investigators that the night before, he went to bed in his bedroom in the basement, which was on a different level of the house as Ayla's bedroom. He claimed he didn't hear anything unusual during the night that would have given him cause for concern. He told police he had no idea where Ayla was, but added he didn't think that she could have wandered out of the house alone. He was sure that she had been abducted. There was no sign of forced entry to the home. So if somebody did break in, I think, on the part of police, they found it hard to believe that no one inside the house would have heard something. It was reported that, Justin's house was fairly small. It wasn't a huge house.
Yeah, so you would think that if someone came in, that his mom, his sister, or himself would have heard somebody walking around.
And I go back to, him saying that very unlikely that she wandered out of the house. Well, I would believe that too. You wouldn't think that a 20-month-old baby who was sleeping in a crib could get out of the crib and then get out of the house. I've seen babies crawl over cribs and fall out of them and do some things like that. But then you've got to make your way to the front door, even if the door is not locked. You got to get up and turn the handle somehow. So it does seem very unlikely to me.
It's not like this is an episode of Boss Baby.
No, not at all. Justin suggested to the police that they look into Trista's whereabouts that day. Now, she didn't live in Waterville, but had passed through the city on her way from Portland to Machiasport in eastern Maine. So Trista went through Waterville, and because of this, the police questioned her for 2 hours about her missing daughter. Gibbs, I had to look this up on the map. It's about 3.5 hours from Portland to Machiasport, but it does look like the route, at least on the map that I looked at, the directions, the route takes you through Waterville. So it doesn't seem to me as though she went out of her way to go through Waterville. It's kind of the natural path that she would have taken, at least on the directions that I looked at. According to the news website centralmaine.com, Waterville police and firefighters took to the air as well as on foot to search the neighborhood. Detectives from Waterville PD and Maine State Police searched the DiPietro home. Police drained the Messalonsky stream for any trace of Ayla, but they didn't find anything. They also searched the woods near the DiPietro home and trash bins around the city.
Well, so they're doing everything right. They're making every effort they can to try to locate her.
Well, it sounds like they are. But imagine, as a police officer, you're diving into trash bins, looking for this girl. What's going through your mind that you could possibly find a dead 20-month-old child?
Every time you lift something up, you're hoping that you don't see a child underneath a trash bag or something like that.
No, because you don't want to find that child in the trash. It's not going to be good news.
Right.
So, Gibbs, we talked about Trista filing for sole custody. So you know that had to run through the minds of the authorities. Did Justin know about this before Ayla disappeared?
Yeah, and if he did, how upset was he?
Right. Well, they later found out that he didn't know about Trista's plans until after Ayla disappeared. What they did discover, though, was that while Ayla was living with Justin, he took out a life insurance policy on his daughter. On December 19th, police seized vehicles belonging to Justin and his girlfriend, Courtney Roberts.
It seems a little strange to take out a life insurance policy on such a young child. I mean, I know that you get all this stuff in the mail. At least I did when I had my 2 kids from one of those companies that tried to get you to take out life insurance on your kids, but I never did. And I just can't imagine needing to do that.
Well, I think the only reason that you would, and this is probably what most companies play up, is to pay for burial expenses.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have any information on how much the policy was or the reasons for, it being taken out. According to CBSNews.com, on December 20th, Justin released a statement. It read, "I'd like to thank everyone involved for their continued support in trying to find our daughter. I have no idea what happened to Ayla or who is responsible. I will not make accusations or insinuations towards anyone. Until the police have been able to prove who's responsible for this, I have shared every piece of information possible with the police. Contrary to some statements floating around, I have communicated with Ayla's mother over the last couple of weeks. It has always been my intention to have a shared parenting arrangement with Ayla's mother, and I will continue to work towards that when Ayla is returned to us. My family and friends will continue to do everything we can to assist in this investigation and to get Ayla back home." So I think the one thing that you can take away from that statement is obviously Gibbs, he was very cognizant of the fact that there was a lot of stuff going around, maybe some of it put out by Trista, that he had not been communicative.
Right.
So he was trying to address that, and he was saying, nope, that's not true. Now, whether it is or not, that's a different story. On December 21st, around 100 people attended a candlelight vigil for Ayla at a local church. The next day, according to CBS Boston, police cadaver dogs searched an area in the woods near the local airport. They placed crime scene tape around the DiPietro home, sealing it off to be searched. On the 26th, police announced they felt Ayla had been taken from the DiPietro home. This was the first time that they publicly said they didn't believe she left the house of her own accord. And maybe, Gibbs, it's been such a long time since my kids were that little. My natural thought was that a 20-month-old just wouldn't leave the house or be able to leave their house on their own. But I could be wrong about that. I mean, there's obviously a reason why the police felt that she could have done this. And maybe I'm just forgetting what a 20-month-old can actually do on their own.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to recall. I mean, I just remember when I was a 20-month-old, but I mean, heck, I was in 6th grade at that point. So.
Yeah. And you were on the gymnastics team, so that doesn't really help us in this regard. Police announced a $30,000 reward for information leading to Ayla's return the next day. And you would think, Gibbs, that such a big reward being offered early on in a case would yield some valuable information.
And that is a large amount.
Yeah.
Based on other cases we've covered.
In the United States.
In the United States, exactly. That's a large amount.
In Australia, we would say, wow, that's pretty low.
We would.
Compared to many of the rewards that we've talked about in Australian cases. And it did result in about 1,200 tips coming in. But unfortunately, as we often see with rewards, the majority of the tips didn't really lead to anything. It was reported in a number of outlets that many of these tips came in from mediums and clairvoyants. And I do think you have that in a lot of cases.
Right.
A lot of people that claim to have those abilities are going to come forward and try to offer their services. But I think the bottom line is there really was no meaningful information that came in as a result of the reward being offered. The NBC Today show did a story on how Justin and his brother Lance worked to produce t-shirts, buttons, and flyers to help raise awareness around Ayla's disappearance. But despite these efforts, Justin didn't actually speak publicly about Ayla's disappearance until almost 3 weeks after the case initially made headlines. The other thing that came out was that he wasn't really cooperating with the police. According to the Bangor Daily News, Trista felt this was odd behavior and claimed that her ex-boyfriend was withholding information about what really happened to Ayla. Christmas 2011 came and went without any new developments.
That'd be rough for the family.
Yeah, and we have talked about that before. It's going to be rough every day that, you have a child missing, a loved one missing. You don't know what's happened to them. I think when those big events roll around, birthdays, Christmas, holidays, stuff like that, does it get maybe even a little bit tougher, sadder? Maybe.
Yeah.
I've never been through it, so I can't speak to it. I can only imagine
I would feel
that it must be. It's Christmas, and we don't have our daughter. And one thing you have to think about, her age. Ayla had only seen one Christmas.
Yeah.
That's how young she was. According to centralmaine.com, the year before, a special ornament belonging to Ayla had hung on the Christmas tree. It was a baby teddy bear saying baby's first Christmas and was adorned with 3 pink lights. And that's an amazing time. A baby's first Christmas.
Right.
The one thing that no family thinks about, unless you have a child with a very serious illness, is that this baby's not going to see her second Christmas.
Yeah, that would never enter your mind.
True Crime All the Time Unsolved is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Let's face it, sometimes multitasking can be overwhelming. Like when your favorite podcast is playing and the person next to you is talking and your car fan is blasting, all while you're trying to find the perfect parking spot. But then again, sometimes multitasking is easy, like quoting with Progressive Insurance. They do the hard work of comparing rates so you can find a great rate that works for you, even if it's not with them. Give their nifty comparison tool a try, and you might just find getting the rate and coverage you deserve is easy. All you need to do is visit Progressive's website to get a quote with all the coverages you want, like comprehensive and collision coverage or personal injury protection. Then you'll see Progressive's direct rate, and their tool will provide options from other companies all lined up and ready to compare. So it's simple to choose the rate and coverages you like. Press play on comparing auto rates. Quote at Progressive.com to join the over 27 million drivers who trust Progressive. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Comparison rates not available in all states or situations. Prices vary based on how you buy. Gibbs, you know how much I love that sound. It's the sound of another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify gives entrepreneurs the resources once reserved for big business. So upstarts, startups, and established businesses alike can sell everywhere, synchronize online and in-person sales, and effortlessly stay informed. Scaling your business is a journey of endless possibility, and I speak from experience. When we switched to Shopify to sell our podcast merch, the process was made so much easier. I love how Shopify has the tools and resources that make it easy for any business to succeed. Like mine, Shopify powers millions of businesses from first sale to full scale. Reach customers online and across social networks with an ever-growing suite of channel integrations and apps, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and more. Synchronize your online and in-person in sales, go to shopify.com/unsolved, all lowercase, for a free 14-day trial and get full access to Shopify's entire suite of features. Grow your business with Shopify today. Go to shopify.com/unsolved right now. Shopify.com/unsolved. You know, Gibbs, sometimes at night, I make my way down to the studio in the basement. Now, most nights I'm working, but sometimes I just go down and play a little Best Fiends. It's a game that I'm always excited to play. It's so easy to pick up and play a few levels anytime you want. And for me, it's a great respite from the research, the writing, everything that goes into putting out this podcast. Best Fiends is a free to download mobile puzzle game with thousands of exciting levels for new adventures and challenges every time you play. I love the dozens of unique fiends that you can collect. You can customize your team of fiends to defeat the menacing slugs. And there's offline play, so you'll never be stranded without fun, even if you lose your internet connection. Best Fiends does a great job of coming up with new events and challenges year-round, so you always have a chance to earn exclusive in-game items, characters, and rewards. I'm closing in on level 350, and for me, this is a game that just never gets old. Download your new favorite getaway, Best Fiends, for free today on the App Store or Google Play. You'll even get $5 worth of in-game rewards when you reach level 5. That's friends without the R, Best Fiends. On December 30th, the Maine State Police Major Crimes Unit took over the investigation, along with Massachusetts detectives who continued searching the DiPietro home. So, Gibbs, I want to take a minute and step back here. Obviously, they're focusing on Justin's home. They're searching it extensively. Now, it is the last place that Ayla was known to have been. But you can kind of see as we go through this story a shift from, okay, we have to find this little girl. She wandered out of the house, to suspicion falling on Justin.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's pretty easy to see as we move along.
Yes.
And on top of that, you have Trista coming out telling newspapers, hey, he knows more than what has said.
And if he's not talking a lot, doesn't help the case either.
Well, it doesn't help the case. It also, doesn't help really the perception of that person in the eyes or the minds of many people looking at it from the outside in.
That's true.
Now, it could be that a person's just shy. They don't want to give a public speech, or they don't want to sit down with a reporter. But let's face it, some of those actions, rightly or wrongly, can negatively affect other people's opinions. In January 2012, police searched a half-mile stretch of the icy Kennebec River between a dam and a bridge, but found nothing. That same month, Justin and Trista both took polygraph tests. CentralMaine.com reported that Trista wasn't able to complete her polygraph due to a medical condition, and Justin's results weren't made public. According to the Bangor Daily News, a month after Ayla's disappearance, a second candlelight vigil was held in Waterville on January 17th. Trista and Justin both attended, but it was reported that Justin was the first to leave the event, and he refused to make any comments to the media. And Gibbs, I don't want to make too much out of this, right? We know that everyone deals with stress differently, situations differently. Like I said, some people don't like to talk to the media.
Right.
They have trouble with public speaking. Maybe this guy was just a very private person who preferred to deal with the anguish he was going through by himself, away from the public.
Yeah, maybe he felt showing up there for the time he did was what he needed to do to show support for his daughter. And then after so much time said, okay, it's time for me to go.
But you know how that looks.
Yeah, not good.
It doesn't. It doesn't make you look good. And I think, Trista couldn't understand why he would do that. Obviously, she was going through the same stuff that he was.
Yeah, so why not kind of be more unified in your efforts to bring awareness to your daughter? Yeah,
I believe that's what she thought. But again, it's a pattern, right? the things that Justin did, the way that he kind of handled things, it doesn't prove that he did anything wrong. But in the eyes of the public, it doesn't make him look great.
It's going to make people scratch their heads for sure.
And maybe even more than that. Maybe, make them be a little suspicious. In late January, NBC News reported that police announced that blood found on the property belonged to Ayla. They also announced a new theory, saying that they now doubted Ayla was abducted from the home and that Justin's version of events didn't pass what they labeled as the straight face test. So again, Gibbs, as we're trending through this case, I said it. He doesn't look good. He doesn't look good. Now police are really coming out and they're casting a good deal of suspicion on Justin.
Yeah, and with this information and how he was acting at the vigil, like you said, it's just not looking good.
Right. He added all up. In February, Trista told CBS Boston she was considering legal action against DHS. She claimed that the agency failed to conduct the required background checks on all the adults in the DiPietro home or conduct regular welfare visits to check on Ayla. On March 11th, Justin spoke with the Morning Sentinel, and he said that he believed Ayla had been kidnapped, despite this theory having been discounted by this point by the state police. On March 24th, police held a press conference asking residents of Greater Kennebec County to search their homes and yards for signs of Ayla. Police also stated that communication between the DiPietros and investigators had basically stopped. But according to CentralMaine.com, Justin's family claimed this was because the police refused to answer their questions.
When you have your 20-month-old missing, I think the last thing that you would want to do is to halt communication with the authorities.
I get you. Now, I think what they're saying is it was a one-way street, right? They had questions that they were asking, police wouldn't answer. So they made the decision that, you know what? We're not going to answer questions either. But I'm with you. If your goal is to find your daughter, which should be your only goal,
right,
then I would think the last thing you would want to do is to put up a barrier between yourself and the agencies who are out there trying to find her, find out what happened to her. On Ayla's second birthday, about 100 people attended her public birthday party in Portland's Monument Square. Many of those in attendance were Ayla's family or close friends of the family. But there were a lot of people from the community that showed up, strangers who had no ties to Ayla or her family. And I think most people viewed this as support for Trista. They're in Portland. She lives in Portland. According to the Charlie Project, in April 2012, 4 months after Ayla's disappearance, police found what they called unspecified items of interest in the Kennebec River. The items were recovered about a mile from the DiPietro home. On May 8th, police drained a dam diversion channel in Waterville looking for evidence. Some identified items were recovered and sent for testing, but proved to be unrelated to the case.
The good thing here is the police are still working, still looking, not giving up, searching rivers and streams in hopes to find something.
Yeah, I think the tough part, and we do see this in many unsolved cases, right? When police say unspecified items of interest. Okay, we don't know what those are, and that's tough for everyone, right? As true crime aficionados, we want to know as many facts as we can get our minds around. But as you've said many times, in some of these unsolved cases, the police don't put out everything. And there's a good reason for that. The following month, Maine State Police held a police conference. They finally had some news to share with the public, which they hoped would invigorate the investigation. But the news wasn't good. Gibbs, the police announced that they believed Ayla was no longer alive. They also reiterated that they didn't believe she'd been abducted. According to the Charlie Project, it had since come out that Justin wasn't at home alone on the night in question. His girlfriend, Courtney Roberts, his sister, Alicia, and their young children had also been in the house at the time that Ayla disappeared. After Justin had put Ayla to bed, Alicia checked on her niece around 10 p.m. and saw that she was asleep. Police had interviewed Justin, Alicia, and Courtney on December 18th, just after Ayla disappeared. But another shocking detail was announced at the press conference. Police stated that in addition to a strong smell of bleach, a substantial amount of Ayla's blood had been discovered throughout the DiPietro home. It was found on her slippers, a doll in her bedroom, on the first floor, and near Justin's bed, which was in the basement. The blood in the basement also had traces of vomit and saliva. Traces of Ayla's blood were also found on her car seat in Justin's car. Law enforcement didn't reveal the quantity of blood found at the time. According to the Bangor Daily News, investigators wouldn't say much about the discovery, aside from the quantity of blood being more than a small cut would produce. CBS 13 and WGME News later reported that forensic technicians behind the scenes had actually identified the equivalent of more than a cupful of Ayla's blood. According to CBS Boston, police announced the reward offer would end on June 30th. So this is a bombshell.
It is a bombshell.
Now, police have known this for quite a while.
Yeah.
And I think it probably tells you why they were so focused on the DiPietro home very early on. Now, this is being announced. The public is hearing about this. We've already talked about the public sentiment. It couldn't have been real good towards Justin and maybe even some of his family members. The speculation, the thought that something bad happened in that house. Well, now you find out that there was blood all over, a cupful.
Yeah. And the smell of bleach, which is typically used to clean up.
Yeah, it just adds to the suspicion, right? And I'm sure to a lot of people, Gibbs, this revelation that Courtney and Alicia had been in the house when Ayla disappeared, this most likely raised suspicions about them. You know, what did they know? What had they not told police? According to the Charlie Project, Courtney and her child slept in the basement bedroom with Justin on the night in question. His sister Alicia and her child slept on the first floor, closer to Ayla's bedroom. Alicia told police Ayla's blood would have been present in the property due to Ayla vomiting in response to severe lactose intolerance.
But you know, a toddler vomiting blood is a serious medical issue.
I would think that would be something where you would get immediate medical attention. Now, I get kids, toddlers, they throw up all the time. But when they start vomiting blood, that is much different. That's no different than you or I. You know, if I got a stomach thing and it causes me to vomit, okay, I'm not too worried. But if there's a bunch of blood in it, all right, my worry level goes up big time.
Yeah, you're off to the ER.
Sure.
Yeah.
According to the Bangor Daily News, throughout May and July of 2012, Trista organized a 4-mile walk in Waterville called the Eyes Open Walk and another one in Portland. On July 6th, Justin's brother Lance was found guilty of an assault committed the previous February. According to the Morning Sentinel, the altercation occurred when the father of Alicia DiPietro's child, which was Justin's niece, was said to have made comments about Ayla's disappearance, which apparently Lance didn't take kindly to.
So it makes you wonder what these comments would have been to make someone get into a fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can only imagine that they possibly were inflammatory to elicit that type of response. On July 17th, investigators undertook another search of the Kennebec River and up to the Hydro-Kennebec Dam, but they didn't find anything of interest. 3 months later, in October 2012, construction workers who were repairing a bridge over the Messalonsky Stream artificially lowered the water level. And state police detectives used that opportunity to dredge the stream again, looking for any sign of Ayla. But according to the Bangor Daily News, they came up empty-handed.
They're still not giving up, though.
No, they're not giving up. I go back to, what you've said before, which is they're really putting a lot of effort into this. And we mentioned it up front. This is the biggest criminal investigation in the history of Maine. I think it's one of the largest searches for a missing child in that state's history as well. 2 months later, investigators conducted 2 searches in southern New Hampshire just before the 1-year anniversary of Ayla's disappearance. Law enforcement announced they weren't quitting in their search for the young girl, despite the fact that they hadn't found anything to help them in their investigation. And that has to be deflating. Like, we said, you're putting a lot of effort, a lot of resources into it, and to not come up with really anything. Now, you've got some things that happened inside the DiPietro home. We don't know what to make of all of it. Some of it seems to be concerning, but as it relates to finding Ayla, finding out exactly what happened to her, they really didn't have anything.
No.
According to the Bangor Daily News, on December 14th, 2012, police announced at a press conference that communication between themselves and the DiPietro family had improved. And to me, this is an interesting announcement, right? They announced that it had broken down. The DiPietro family really wasn't cooperating. Then it came out that they found what was some very concerning things inside the house. Now they have a press conference that says, okay, the communication has improved again.
Which is great. That's what you want.
It's great, but what's going to come out of it? That's the big question. Okay, it's improved. How is it going to help? On the 1-year anniversary of Ayla's disappearance, around 20 people lit candles and sang Christmas carols out front of the home where she was last seen. Over 6 months later, on July 25th, 2013, Justin pleaded not guilty to domestic violence assault. He and Courtney had broken up by this point, but he was charged with grabbing and pushing her during an argument. That September, Trista's stepfather, Jeff Hansen, started the petition asking the Attorney General to bring charges against Justin over Ayla's disappearance. On September 10th, Justin was arrested in South Portland for possessing alcohol, which was a violation of his bail conditions. Then on September 26th, Trista publicly confronted Justin when he attended court in Portland on the assault matter. Trista told media outlets that she wanted to use Justin's appearance to raise awareness of the fact that there were still no charges against anyone in Ayla's case.
Seems like a couple rough months for Justin.
That's what I was thinking. The other thing that crossed my mind, Gibbs, is he and Courtney broke up. Courtney was there inside the house the night that Ayla disappeared. He's charged with domestic violence assault against her. You would think that would be the time, if she knew anything about what had happened, if he had done something to hurt Ayla,
right,
that would be the time for her to come forward.
Unless somehow she was involved.
And whatever she said would implicate her as well. Yeah, I think that's a good point. On October 23rd, tips from the public led to another search by state police in the woods off Hussey Hill Road in Oakland. The area had repeatedly been mentioned by tipsters calling in, but unfortunately nothing of value was recovered. So that's interesting in the fact that you have a large number of people calling in with tips about a very specific location. I wonder why.
Yeah, I wonder if it was the psychics or just locals.
But then they search it and nothing's found. By November 2014, the statute of limitations on some charges which could be applied to Ayla's case was about to expire. Trista was devastated that no one had been charged with child endangerment. She told CentralMaine.com that, in her view, Justin, Alicia, and Phoebe should be put in jail. But 3.5 years after Ayla's disappearance, there was sudden hope that her remains had been located. On June 25, 2015, the unidentified body of a toddler was found in a plastic bag on the shore of Deer Island in Massachusetts. Authorities estimated the little girl, who became known as Baby Doe, had been between 3 and 5 years old at the time she died. Ayla was only 20 months old at the time of her disappearance. So if Baby Doe was Ayla, that meant that she had to have been held for a period of time before she was killed.
Yeah.
Ayla was eventually eliminated, though, as being the young girl who'd been found washed up on the island. In September 2015, the tiny victim was identified as 2.5-year-old Bella Bond. Bella's mother, Rochelle, and her boyfriend, Michael McCarthy, were arrested. Even though Bella's autopsy couldn't confirm the cause of death, it was evident that the toddler had been murdered. Rochelle Bond pleaded guilty to being an accessory after the fact. Michael McCarthy was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole.
Tragic, sad. I mean, wasn't Ayla, which I think the family had to be happy that it wasn't.
Yeah, but I think about getting that news. You know, if you're the family, you hear that a toddler has been found dead. It could be Ayla. What's that emotion?
Yeah.
What's that feeling? It has to be dread. I mean, I don't even know. I can't imagine. But then to find out that it's not her, maybe some relief, like you said, but at the same time, another toddler was murdered.
Yeah, tragic. What a terrible way to dispose of the body.
No one has been formally named as a suspect in Ayla's case. You know, we've talked about it, Gibbs. A lot of attention has been directed towards certain individuals. However, there's no physical evidence at this stage for detectives to charge anyone. And I go back to what was found inside the home. You know, quite a bit of blood. You know, a cup of blood that's a lot.
Yeah, especially coming from a child.
But if someone says, yes, she was vomiting blood that night, and okay, we tried to clean some of it up, do you have enough to bring charges? I mean, you can think that some of these people are involved
right
all day long. But at the end of the day, and this is what's frustrating in many unsolved cases, it's all about getting a charge to stick.
Sure.
And putting things in front of a jury that will get beyond that reasonable doubt and whatever legal hurdle is there.
Maybe she did have blood in her vomit. Maybe they did try to clean it up. And sure, should they have taken her to the hospital? I think so. But maybe they thought, you know what? She's not vomiting anymore. We'll put her back to bed. Things will be good. And then they wake up the next morning and she's gone. That's what they're saying happened. Does the police believe that? Does the public believe that? I don't know.
Well, I think if you look online, as we often do, to kind of see which way the wind is blowing, at least from the side of, public sentiment, there's a lot of suspicion.
Yeah.
That is cast on Justin and some members of his family. There's just no way around it. Anybody can go out there and search this case. You're going to see some very, very negative comments.
Yeah. I think it's hard to say that it was a stranger abduction because the house was small. You had 3 adults in the house. I think that's a tough theory.
No forced entry.
Exactly.
Early on, police considered whether Ayla's disappearance somehow resulted from an accident. And I think you can look at that 2 different ways. If Ayla made it outside and somehow, died from, let's say, an accident, well, you would expect to find her body relatively quickly.
Yeah, especially the way that authorities searched that area.
Now, on the other hand, if she fell victim to an accident inside the home while adults were present, then that could only be explained by a cover-up.
Yeah, maybe they got nervous, didn't know what to do, scared, and took things into their own hands.
Did something with her body to hide it. Again, we're not saying that's what happened, but there's really only two ways from my perspective that the accident angle can be explained. And I think the first one's pretty tough because, again, she's probably not going to go very far, and her body, you would think, would have been found, at least by now, but most likely fairly quickly in the investigation.
Yeah.
We talked about the fact that Trista was in rehab at the time, but we also know that she filed for sole custody the day before Ayla disappeared. There are some people online, Gibbs, that have floated the theory that Trista could have arranged for her daughter to be abducted and taken somewhere until she finished rehab. I think, this one's a tough theory because, first of all, there's nothing to substantiate it.
Right.
It's just a theory that people float, and people float a lot of theories in these unsolved cases. I think to buy into this one, you would have to believe that she then got her daughter back, but has been able to somehow hide her all of these years from the public, from, the authorities. It just doesn't seem to hold water. Trista later told True Crime Daily that police informed her Ayla had been rolled up in a blanket and put in a tote bag. She maintains her belief that Justin has knowledge of what happened to Ayla. But like we said, at this point, at the time we're recording this episode, there's been no charges against Justin or anyone else in Ayla's disappearance. For Justin's part, he continues to maintain his innocence and denies any involvement in his daughter's disappearance or death. He also maintains that Ayla wasn't abducted by a stranger, but instead by someone known to her, though he has never publicly named who he thinks is responsible. Now, one thing that's known, Gibbs, is that law enforcement, as well as Trista, have publicly stated that Justin hasn't been entirely honest about what he knows about that night. Now, we don't know what that is that he's not been honest about. It's one thing for Trista to come out and say that. I think it's another thing entirely for law enforcement to make that statement.
Sure is.
That, to me, means something. Now, they're not going to share everything they know or everything that leads them to believe that, but it definitely means something. According to NBC 10 Boston, Ayla was declared legally dead by the state of Maine in September 2017. This was in response to a request made by Trista. Authorities stated they believed Ayla had died around the same time that she was reported missing. According to the Morning Sentinel, Justin had moved across the country to California by the time that Ayla was legally declared dead. When he was served a copy of the court document at his new address, he denied being the person listed on the paperwork in question.
It's always a strange thing to do.
Well, it is. I understand wanting to move, whether you had something to do with this or not. There is a part of me that understands maybe not wanting to continue to live in that area.
Right.
The memories, the anguish that maybe things would bring up. You hear that all the time in unsolved cases. Now, you also hear the flip side. People don't want to ever leave because they think they're going to get a phone call or they think that person's going to walk back through the door. But to deny you're the person you are, that is strange.
It is strange. Like you said, I get why he might want to move, especially with some of the negativity in his direction, right, from the public.
Mm-hmm.
But why would you deny that's your name?
And maybe that is why he denied it, because he just doesn't want people to know where he is. He doesn't want that press. But Who knows? According to the Associated Press, on December 17th, 2018, Trista filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Justin. She alleged that he caused their daughter's death through intentional wrongful actions, subjecting her to pre-death pain, fright, terror, and physical injuries. Justin responded, claiming that Ayla's blood was found in the house because she had previously been ill. But we mentioned it, Gibbs, a cup full of blood. That's a lot to lose.
Yeah, I think in a grown adult, it's a lot to lose.
I think it's definitely a lot to lose through getting sick. Now, to me, that would be more like maybe sustaining an injury, a serious cut, or, something like that. Could you vomit a cup full of blood? Maybe. I don't know. It seems like a lot.
But if you do, you should be headed off to the hospital.
Again, I do go back to that as well. At the very least, that's kind of bad parenting, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
As part of the suit, Trista was seeking unspecified monetary damages. She claimed the primary motivation behind the suit was to find out what happened to Ayla and bring her body home. But Trista was unable to get the lawsuit served because by this point, no one could find Justin. It was reported that he'd gone underground. Trista publicly appealed to Justin via Inside Edition, saying, "I promise you, wherever you are, one day you will have to face me and tell me the truth of what really happened to Ayla. You can't hide from this forever." According to WMTW News, it wasn't until May 2019 that Justin surfaced and responded, denying any responsibility. And again, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but, does any of this stuff prove that he did anything wrong? No, besides maybe not being a great parent that night.
Right.
If she was vomiting that amount of blood, does it prove that he hurt her, that he killed her? No. But in the court of public opinion, it's almost like everything this guy has done has made the public against him.
Right.
I think you could say that. And I think a lot of people have asked the question, is Justin avoiding the press because he just wants to, handle things privately, or is it something else? Is he concealing something that he doesn't want to be asked about? He doesn't want the authorities to find out about. I think a lot of people have that question.
Yeah. And because the lack of communication from him, people are going to have those questions.
According to Fox 23 News, in February 2022, Trista applied to the court to expand the scope of her lawsuit against Justin. This was off the back of a forensic report reviewing the initial police investigation. Reports and photographs held by the Office of the Maine Attorney General and Maine State Police indicated that Ayla's bloodstains, amount, location, and appearance throughout the DiPietro home suggested that her blood hadn't simply spilled from an injury, but had been attempted to be cleaned up. Trista alleged that Justin, Phoebe, and Alicia were involved in the cleanup and then hid Ayla's body in an unknown location. And we talked about the bleach. We talked about the fact that a lot of people have suggested that there was a cleanup. According to centralmaine.com, if Trista's updated suit is approved, Justin, Phoebe, and Alicia will all face civil counts of wrongful death, conscious pain and suffering, and wrongful interference with the body of a deceased person. Phoebe will face a count of premises liability, and Justin will also face a count of breach of parents' duty of care to a minor child.
That's a lot of charges.
Yeah, it's a lot of charges. Again, I don't know if, that's going to go through. The civil proceedings have been affected by the delays due to, the pandemic. As of the time we're recording this, Trista's suit has not yet been heard in court. To honor her daughter and remind the community Ayla isn't forgotten, Trista keeps a pink porch light on every night. In December every year, the month Ayla went missing, the light shines 24 hours a day. At the time of Ayla's disappearance, she was 2 foot 9 inches tall. She weighed 30 pounds, Gibbs.
Yeah, tiny.
She had blonde hair and blue eyes. If you have any information on the disappearance of Ayla, you can contact the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children at 1-800-THE-LOST, the Maine State Police at 207-624-7076, or the Waterville Police Department at 207-872-5551. You can also leave an anonymous tip at the Maine State Police website at www.maine.gov/DPS/MSP. So Gibbs, as we wrap up this case, it is a very sad one. You know, anytime you're dealing with a child, and in this one, we're dealing with a 20-month-old. That's rough. The one thing that I will say is there's no way for us to know conclusively what happened to Ayla Reynolds. But I'll also say there's no doubt in my mind, based on the public sentiment, the majority of people believe that Justin either had something to do with or knows more than what he has told police. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that that is clear from what you see posted online.
Yeah.
Well, and law enforcement has said that. So I don't
Sure.
think it's a stretch.
I mean, when you look at the case, only 3 things could happen, right? Either she got up and crawled or walked out of the place by herself, someone came in and took her, or something happened in that home that night that we're not completely made aware of yet.
Yeah, I would say that. And, you know, I would probably lean towards, if somebody did take her, stranger abduction.
Right.
And we have seen that before in cases where, you know, a family was really looked at as being responsible, and it later turned out that somebody actually did come inside that house and take a child.
It can happen.
It can happen. There's no doubt about it. I think what really makes this case so much different than many of the other cases like that is this blood.
Sure.
This cup full is what, you know, described as a cup full of Ayla's blood throughout the house, and the explanation by the people in that house that it was all due to her vomiting.
Yeah.
I can't get past that because I know every parent listening is thinking the same thing. If my son or daughter, no matter how old they were, was vomiting a cup full of blood, I'd be calling 911.
Yeah.
Because that would be so scary to see that much blood coming out of your child.
It'd definitely be alarming, and I can't imagine too many people not taking action and getting their kid to the hospital.
Yeah. And you know, to me, that's the one thing that really sticks with me about this case.
Doesn't mean they're guilty of her disappearance, but it doesn't look good.
No, I don't think it looks good to anyone. But that's it for our episode on the disappearance of Ayla Reynolds. We got some voicemails, Gibbs. You want to check those out?
Let's check them out.
Hey, Mike and Gibby, this is Caitlin from Watson, North Dakota. I just wanted to leave you a voicemail saying how much I love your show. I'm a reconditioning manager at a dealership, so I spend all day washing cars and listening to the podcast. I have a case suggestion for you. It's the case of Andrew Sadek that took place here in my tiny town. I remember coming home from school to cop cars being in my driveway and being really confused. It turns out the cops were just using our backyard as a way to get into the river. So I grew up on the river, and they were searching for his body. So it's a really interesting case. I remember it well. I was a freshman in college when it happened. So if you could look into that, I would love to hear you guys cover it. By the way, I'm Team Fergie. Stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
Wow, rare Team Fergie, Gibbs.
North Dakota from, like, you know, I'm trying to think of that Fargo voice.
No, I thought she had a great voice.
She did. Yeah. It didn't sound like she was from, North Dakota, or whatever.
Now I think you're going too far north.
Yep.
With your A. Take off, A.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Heather from Castle Rock, Colorado. My hometown is in Butler County, Ohio. And I wanted to call and suggest a few murders. If you would Google Bradford Gill and Raymond Tanner, they're pretty gruesome. One involved a child and one involved a decapitation. And also, if you're local, and this isn't just a Dayton number, you're probably aware of the Laney Gwinner case, which has never been solved, but it's just baffling what happened to her. I love the podcast. Mike, you seem so much more relaxed on this one, and much more chemistry with your partner there. I just found this podcast, and so I've been listening to it constantly, and I love it. So I just wanted to give you guys a shout out and suggest those cases. So have a great day. Thank you.
All right. Some great suggestions.
Yeah.
We'll make sure are on the list. I'm very relaxed with Gibbs until he gets the K-bar out. That's the only time I start to tense up.
And you should.
I know. I got to be on my toes.
That's right.
Head on a swivel.
Exactly.
Hello, this is Sarah from Orlando, Florida, and I just started listening to your guys' podcast. I really like it. I especially really love the unsolved one. I'm just a sucker for that type of stuff. But I did have a case suggestion, and I don't think you guys have covered it. I'm only at episode 100 only. I'm on episode 100 of Unsolved. But there's this case of a Texas teen named Nicholas Barclay, and his story is very interesting because he goes missing, and then an imposter from France, there's a whole movie about it, takes his identity, and the family, accepts this imposter who really is nothing like their missing son. And they accept this imposter as their son, and he lives with the family for months, I believe. And then it comes out that he's not really Nicholas and whatever. But it raises the question, why did the family accept him so easily? And even he was eventually arrested for pretending to be someone he wasn't, especially a missing teenager when he wasn't. I believe he was in his 20s when this happened. But he comes out with stories of stuff that the family said to him, stuff that the family was like, we know you're not our son, but then why did they accept him? And this kid is still missing. Nicholas Barclay was never found. They've always suspected that someone in his own household killed him and possibly buried him in the backyard or did something. It's very strange. It's a very sad case. But yeah, and so keep your own time ticking. I believe that's what it is. Thank you.
Maybe they wanted to accept him just because they wanted to believe that, they found their child.
Maybe, but sounds interesting. Something we should look into for sure. So thank you everyone for the voicemails. All right, buddy, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.
How much is your time worth? Whether you're a realtor, lawyer, accountant, or even a content creator, Stamps.com gives you the chance to focus your time on what you do best. Don't waste your time mailing letters or shipping packages. Stamps is there to help. Print stamps, shipping labels, or certified mail forms in seconds. Get up to 89% off USPS, UPS, and other carriers, and schedule free package pickups all from one place. Stamps.com also makes it easy to track shipments, manage contacts, and report on how much you send and spend. Over the last 28 years, more than 4 million customers have relied on Stamps.com to make their lives easier. Don't waste time worrying about being a postage expert or standing in line to drop off letters and packages. Let Stamps.com do what they do best so you can do what you do better. Go to stamps.com/audio to sign up for a special offer. No contract, cancel anytime. That's stamps.com/audio.